The FBI now investigating the police shooting of Jacob Blake in Kenosha, Wisconsin. The Wisconsin Attorney General identifying Rustin Shesky, a 7-year veteran of the Kenosha Police Department, as the officer who shot Blake. Meanwhile, a 17-year-old from Illinois is in custody in connection with a double fatal shooting at the protests on Tuesday. NBC News correspondent Shaq Brewster joins me now. He has been in Kenosha all week long. Shaq, let's start with the Jacob Blake shooting. What more do you know about the shooting itself and the officer who fired the shots into Blake's back?
Well, Allison, you mentioned some of the more recent information that we learned, that the officer was a 7-year veteran, Mr. Rustin Shesky, and we also know a little bit more of the timeline and the circumstances surrounding what exactly happened on that Sunday evening. Officers say that they they were responding to a call from a woman who said her boyfriend was at the location and wasn't supposed to be there. They're not saying whether or not that person is Mr. Blake. They're just saying that was the call that they were responding to. And they say when they got on scene, they encountered Mr. Blake. They tried to arrest him, and they unsuccessfully tased him. In that interaction at some point, they say that Mr. Blake admitted to them that he had a knife in his possession. They do not say whether or not they saw that knife or whether or not they knew where that knife exactly was. But then they say after the officer shot Mr. Blake 7 times in the back, they do confirm that they did recover. Investigators recovered a knife in the from the floorboard of the driver's side of that vehicle. So we now know more information than we have known since this all began. We had that statement that came out on Sunday evening after the shooting, but now we're starting to get a fuller picture of exactly what happened and what occurred at that shooting. Allison, while I have you on this topic, I want to bring up a new statement or a new tweet that we just heard from Andrew Yang. And the reason why I'm doing that, I know that might sound a little bit confusing, but the reason why I'm reading this tweet is because he says he just spoke to Jacob Blake Sr., the father of Mr. Blake, who's in the hospital right now. And Mr. Yang says his son is conscious. He says his first question after he woke up was, quote, "Daddy, why did they shoot me so many times?" Andrew Yang continues to write on Twitter that he wept to his father. He has restraints on, even though he can't move his legs. So it sounds like, according to Mr. Yang, who says he spoke to Jacob Blake's father, Mr. Blake is conscious right now. He does have handcuffs as he's in that hospital bed, and that's the latest we know about his condition at this point. Allison?
Shaq, let me ask you as well about the teen in custody for Tuesday's shooting. He was from Illinois. What do we know about why he was in Kenosha?
Yeah, 17-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse, and Kyle Rittenhouse, 17 years old. He's from Antioch, Illinois, which is about 30 minutes away from where we are right now in Kenosha. And right now we know he's in custody. He's in Illinois custody. At some point, they want to bring him from Illinois to Wisconsin. We will see him in court, at least virtually tomorrow at some point. It seems like it'll be about tomorrow morning, and it'll be via Zoom or some other forum like that. We'll see him in court. But what we did find overnight, he was actually interviewed on Tuesday night. Tuesday night is when he was accused of shooting and killing 2 protesters, one 26-year-old man, the other was 36 years old. And ahead of that shooting, he was interviewed by the Daily Caller, an online publication. Listen to a chunk of that interview where he explains why he was here in Kenosha.
Our job is to protect this business, and part of my job is to also help people. If there's somebody hurt, I'm running into harm's way. That's why I have my rifle, because I can protect myself, obviously, but I also have my med kit.
Right now, he's charged with intentional homicide, but the district attorney suggested in a press conference yesterday that there may be some updated charges that may come from it. But we do know he is in custody right now, and we can expect to see him in court tomorrow morning. Allison?
Shaq, last night, Vice President Pence referenced Kenosha at the RNC, but he did not mention Jacob Blake's shooting. How's that going over in Kenosha today?
Right. Well, I'll tell you, Allison, it's not something that many people here are focused on right now. I know you see behind me, people are painting up these murals that are going on. You see there's plywood all over the city that we saw all downtown after that first night of violence. People started to protect their businesses, and you see some people still painting, and this is something that goes on block by block. We're at a different location than we were when I spoke to you even just 2 hours ago. But what people have been telling me is this is where they want their focus to be on. They want their focus to be on healing the community, on bringing people together. They still see that video and they still understand there's outrage over the shooting of Mr. Jacob Blake, but they want people to come together and do so peacefully. One thing to also note about what we've been hearing, yes, Vice President Pence, he did not mention Jacob Blake by name, but listed Kenosha as one of the cities where he's calling on the violence to end. Well, President Trump also has done something similar, referenced Kenosha and the violence and saying that he's sending federal officials. The governor of Wisconsin disputes that, but he says he's sending federal officials. But President Trump also never mentioning Mr. Blake by name. That is in stark contrast, and I know you were just talking to Ali Vitale about that, about what you're hearing from the Biden-Harris campaign. Vice President Biden almost immediately put out a statement. We heard Senator Kamala Harris today talk about how she felt viewing that tape and that video that came out on Sunday afternoon or Sunday evening. So you're seeing a dramatic divide between how different people and different leaders are responding to this crisis. Last point I'll make for you is here in Kenosha, this is a swing county. As we look ahead to November 2020 in the general election, this is a county that President Obama won twice in 2008 and 2012, and then President Trump flipped it by about 250 votes in 2016. So this is a swing county, and when you hear that message of law and order from President Trump, when you hear that message that we heard last night from Vice President Pence, it's areas like these that they're targeting right now, especially with the violence that we saw, with the rioting that we saw, and the looting and the destruction. It's areas like these and voters in areas like this that they're targeting when they have that messaging. So it will be an issue with this election. We know it's going to come up with President Trump in his speech tonight. It's expected to be an issue that you hear both candidates talk about and voters from both sides contend with as we head into the November election. Allison?
Well, Shaq, we've been told to expect a very lengthy speech from the president tonight. We'll see if he mentions Jacob Blake by name then. Shaq Brewster in Kenosha, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Joe Biden taking issue today with President Trump's silence on Jacob Blake. In an exclusive interview with MSNBC host Andrea Mitchell, Biden accused Trump of rooting for more violence for his own political benefit. Here's part of that interview.
Jacob Blake was never mentioned in any of the speeches at the Republican convention, not mentioned when the Vice President, Mike Pence, spoke last night. He also said that Joe Biden would double down on the very policies that are leading to violence in America's cities, adding that the hard truth is you won't be safe in Joe Biden's America. Your response to that?
He keeps it. Yeah, Joe Biden's America. Look, while running a video of Donald Trump's America, the problem we have right now is we're in Donald Trump's America. You know, to quote Kelly Conway, she said, and I'm paraphrasing today, that they're looking for more violence and more disruption because it helps them politically. He views this as a political benefit to him. You know, he's rooting for more violence, not less. And it's clear about that. And what's he doing? He's kept pouring gasoline on the fire. This happens to be Donald Trump's America. Donald Trump's America.
Would you consider going to Wisconsin if it could be done safely in this pandemic?
Yes, I would. I would consider that. What I don't want to do is I don't want to become part of the problem. And I want to make sure that I was able to be done safely and would bring some competence. If I were president, I'd be going. But it's hard to tell now what the circumstance on the ground is. If I went, what I'd be doing is trying to pull together the Black community as well as the white community and sit down and talk about how we get through this. This is not about whether or not, all folks in that community agree with white supremacists or blacks in the community agree with some of those folks who are looting. I don't think that's what Kenosha is about. I don't think that's what Black and white America is about. But that's what's being seen now, and it has to stop.
You alluded to this, but the 17-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse, who was arrested in connection, at least with, he was at least charged with intentional homicide, and 2 people did die during those protests Tuesday night. He has espoused some views. He's part of a youth police group. He was holding a long gun. He was out and about. Nobody restrained him. What are your concerns about the involvement of others, perhaps he, but others who are white militia people stirring this trouble?
Oh, I'm very concerned about it. Again, you saw what got me involved in this race, and I hadn't planned on running in the first place, was what happened in Charlottesville. The same kind of appeal to these guys don't use a dog whistle; they use a bullhorn. They use a bullhorn, and there's a 17-year-old young man. I don't know anything about him. All I know is that there's some reporting about a connection to a militia in Illinois. Look, this is not who we are. This is not who America is. They want to bring about some order and safety and security for people. We have to start dealing with the real problems underlying all these issues. And the president never speaks to them. He never speaks to them. But the part that bothers me the most is the idea of just pouring gasoline on the racial flames that are burning now. That does not justify any of the looting, any of the burning, any of the damage being done by protesters. But the people have a right to be angry. People have a right to protest, and they should listen to. They should listen to Mom. She's being really, really, really strong and saying, this is not who we are. This is not my family. This is not my son. And we have to get to dealing with just racial justice. It's real. There's a real problem. And notice that problem just keeps getting worse under the tenure of this president because of the things he says and doesn't do. You know, he screwed up the economy so badly. For the last 4 years, we weren't having riots, racial riots. When they occurred, we didn't have to call on the national. We protected federal property without hurting people. We moved in a direction that made sense. We were working with police and dealing with, look, the vast majority of police are decent, honorable women and men. But we have to deal with the real problems that exist out there and take them on. And so, you know, I'm not sure. I mean, he's a fiction writer in the extreme.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.